You know what the problem with overconfidence is? It makes you forget that somewhere out there, someone's probably having a good laugh at your expense. And trust me, as a Vorthak military intelligence officer who spent 3 cycles studying every known species in this sector, I should have seen it coming. Should have. But did I? Oh, absolutely not. My name is Krex Valdron, and I used to think I was pretty smart. Used to think our Dominion fleet was the apex of military evolution. 27 consecutive victories across 12 star systems, each one more devastating than the last. We had the numbers, we had the technology, and more importantly, we had the arrogance that comes with never losing a single engagement. "Krex!" Commander Thys bellowed from across the war room, her massive frame casting shadows over the tactical displays. "Tell me again why we're wasting time with intelligence reports when we could be glassing their pathetic little colonies right now." I sighed, manipulating the holographic display with my secondary appendages while trying not to roll all 4 of my eyes. "Because, Commander, even insects can surprise you if you step on them wrong. These humans have been expanding at an alarming rate. 7 new colonies in the past cycle alone." "7?" She laughed, a sound like grinding metal that made the junior officers flinch. "We conquered 7 systems before breakfast yesterday. What could possibly threaten the might of 300 Dominion vessels?" That's when Lieutenant Zarn burst through the chamber doors, his breathing apparatus wheezing with panic. Now, Zarn was many things, but excitable wasn't one of them. Seeing him in this state was like watching a glacier sprint. Just one thing before we begin. YouTube tells me 94.3% of you watching aren't subscribed. Subscribing is free. It really supports the channel, and you'll get more amazing HFY sci-fi stories delivered straight to you. Don't miss out. "Commander!" "Sir, we've intercepted human transmissions from the Kepler-7 system. They're requesting reinforcements." Thys leaned back in her command throne, practically purring with satisfaction. "How many ships are they calling for? 12? 2 dozen? Surely they realize the futility of—" "1, sir." The war room fell silent except for the gentle hum of life support systems and the occasional beep from monitoring stations. I felt my mandibles twitch with confusion. "1 what?" I asked slowly. "1 ship, sir. A single vessel." The transmission was brief, but we managed to decode it. They're requesting immediate assistance from something called Captain Reese Morgan aboard the vessel Defiant. Commander Thys stared at him for several heartbeats before erupting into laughter. 1 ship against our entire armada. Oh, this is rich. This is absolutely perfect. I was worried these humans might actually provide some entertainment. But if they think 1 pathetic vessel can— "Permission to speak freely, Commander?" I interrupted, my analytical mind already working overtime. She waved a dismissive claw. "Granted, but make it quick. I want to position our forces for the most spectacular demonstration of superiority this sector has ever witnessed." "It doesn't make sense." "No species requests a single ship against overwhelming odds unless—" I paused, accessing my tactical databases. "Unless that single ship represents something we don't understand." "Or," interjected Lieutenant Zarn nervously, "unless they're completely insane." "That's also possible," I admitted. Commander Thys rose from her throne, her full 3-meter height making everyone else in the room feel adequately insignificant. "Enough speculation. We advance on Kepler-7 in 6 standard hours. If these humans want to send 1 ship against 300, then we'll give them a lesson in mathematics they'll never forget, assuming any of them survive to remember it." The next few hours passed in typical pre-battle preparation. Weapon systems were calibrated, shields were tested, and our boarding parties sharpened their claws with particular enthusiasm. I tried to focus on standard intelligence gathering, but something kept nagging at me about this human response. In all my research, humans had never shown themselves to be suicidal. Reckless? Yes. Unpredictable, certainly. But not suicidal. When we dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler-7 system, our sensors immediately began cataloging targets. 3 human colonies, minimal orbital defenses, exactly what we expected. What we didn't expect was the complete absence of panic. "Sir," reported sensor technician Vex from her station, "I'm detecting normal civilian traffic patterns. No evacuation ships, no emergency broadcasts, no signs of defensive preparations." "Maybe they haven't detected us yet?" suggested Lieutenant Zarn hopefully. I manipulated the long-range scanner controls myself, zooming in on the human settlements. People were going about their daily business. Children were playing in parks. Markets were open. It was as if 300 warships hadn't just appeared on their doorstep. "Commander," I said slowly, "either these humans are the most zen species in the galaxy, or they know something we don't," she finished grimly. That's when our proximity alarms started screaming. "Contact! Single vessel approaching from the outer system." Vex's voice cracked with excitement. "Mass signature indicates. That can't be right." "What is it?" Thais demanded. "It's small." "Roughly frigate class." "But sir, the energy readings." Vex manipulated her controls frantically. "I've never seen anything like this." On the main display, a human ship materialized out of what appeared to be empty space. It was sleek, angular, and completely unremarkable except for one tiny detail that made my blood freeze in my veins. It was alone, and it was heading straight for us at impossible speeds. "Hail them," Commander Theiss ordered, her voice steady despite the obvious confusion rippling through the bridge crew. The communication array crackled to life, and suddenly we were looking at a human face on our main screen. Male, middle-aged by their species standards, with graying hair and eyes that seemed to hold secrets we weren't meant to understand. "This is Captain Reese Morgan of the Earth Defense Force vessel Defiant. You are trespassing in human space and threatening civilian populations. You have 30 seconds to begin retreat procedures before I am forced to take action." The silence on our bridge stretched for exactly 3 heartbeats before everyone started laughing. Everyone except me. Commander Theiss wiped tears from her eyes. "Take action? You magnificent little fool! Do you see these displays? Do you understand what you're facing?" Captain Morgan's expression didn't change. "I see 300 vessels that are about to learn why humans don't negotiate with bullies. This is your final warning, human. Surrender now, and we might allow your colonies to— Time's up." The transmission ended. That's when things got interesting. The human ship, this Defiant, suddenly accelerated to speeds that our sensors insisted were impossible. Not just fast, but physics-defying, reality-bending impossible. It was moving at roughly 30% light speed without engaging any form of faster-than-light drive that we could detect. "Evasive maneuvers!" Theiss shouted, but it was far too late. The Defiant opened fire with weapons that our computers couldn't even classify. Beams of energy that seemed to ignore our shields entirely, passing through them like they weren't there and striking our hull with surgical precision. But here's the kicker. They weren't trying to destroy us. The first ship to get hit, the battlecruiser Dominance, found its weapon systems completely offline. Not damaged, not destroyed, just turned off. Like someone had flipped a switch, The second ship, our carrier Supremacy, suddenly couldn't maneuver. All engine control systems were simply disabled. The third, fourth, and fifth ships lost their shields, life support backups, and communication arrays respectively, all within 47 seconds. "What in the name of the void is happening?" Commander Thiss screamed as damage reports flooded in from across the fleet. But they weren't really damage reports, were they? They were confusion reports, bewilderment reports. How is this even possible reports? I was frantically analyzing the attack patterns when Lieutenant Zarn appeared at my shoulder, his face pale with terror. "Sir, I've been monitoring their weapon signatures. These aren't conventional energy weapons." "Then what are they?" "I think they're computer viruses. Weaponized computer viruses that somehow exist as energy beams." "That's impossible." "Sir, 12 more ships just lost primary navigation. 3 lost artificial gravity. And the battleship Crusher just reported that all their food replicators are now producing nothing but something called chocolate cake." I stared at him. "Chocolate cake?" "Apparently it's a human dessert, sir." The Defiant continued its impossible dance through our fleet formations, and with each pass, more of our ships found themselves victim to increasingly creative forms of technological disruption. Ships losing artificial gravity only in their weapons bays, communication systems that would only transmit human music, shield generators that projected images of small Earth animals instead of defensive barriers. "This isn't warfare," I muttered, watching our mighty armada being systematically humiliated. "This is someone playing with us," Commander Thiss overheard. "Playing? Playing?" Her roar shook the bridge plating. "Open all channels. Full fleet bombardment. Turn that insignificant pest into cosmic dust." "Sir, that would also destroy the human colonies," I pointed out. "I don't care." Nothing could be worth this humiliation. But as our remaining functional ships prepared to fire, something extraordinary happened. The Defiant stopped moving. Just stopped. Right in the middle of our formation, surrounded by 300 hostile vessels, Captain Morgan's ship hung in space, like he was daring us to make the next move. "Sir," Vex reported nervously, "the human vessel is powering down its weapons." "Powering down? Is this some kind of surrender?" "I don't think so, sir. They're broadcasting on all frequencies." Captain Morgan's face reappeared on our screens, and this time he was smiling. Not a pleasant smile. The kind of smile that suggested he knew something we really, really didn't want him to know. "Attention, Vorthak Fleet. I believe I've made my point. Your weapons are now offline, your navigation systems are compromised, and roughly 60% of your vessels are experiencing what your technical teams will undoubtedly describe as impossible malfunctions. I could have destroyed you all within the first minute of engagement, but where's the fun in that?" Commander Thiss was speeching incoherently now, a mixture of rage and confusion that would have been comedic if it weren't so terrifying. "Here's what's going to happen," Morgan continued conversationally. "You're going to retreat from this system. You're going to remove all Vorthak forces from human space, and you're going to spread the word that Captain Reese Morgan and the crew of the Defiant are not to be trifled with." "You're insane," Thiss finally managed to articulate. "Even if you've disabled some of our ships, we still outnumber you. We still have firepower. We still—" "Commander Thiss," Morgan interrupted, and the fact that he knew her name sent a chill through the entire bridge crew. "Let me explain something about human military doctrine. We don't win wars by having bigger guns or more ships. We win by being smarter, more adaptable, and significantly more creative than our opponents." The main display shifted, showing a tactical overview of our entire fleet. But this wasn't our tactical display. This was theirs, and it was showing things about our ships that our own sensors hadn't detected. You see, while you were busy being impressed with your numbers, I was analyzing every aspect of your technology. Your shield frequencies, your weapon signatures, your computer protocols, your life support systems. Humans have a particular talent for reverse engineering things we've never seen before. I watched in horrified fascination as the display highlighted weaknesses in our formations that I hadn't even considered. Blind spots in our sensor coverage, vulnerable points in our ship designs, communication gaps in our command structure. The viruses I've introduced into your systems aren't just random disruptions. They're specifically designed to exploit the inherent flaws in Vorthak technology. Flaws that exist because you've never had to adapt, never had to innovate, never had to think outside the box. Lieutenant Zarn leaned over to whisper in my ear. "Sir, I'm detecting massive power buildups across the human colonies." "What kind of power buildups?" "Defensive arrays, weapons platforms. They're coming online all across the system." I felt my heart sink. The colonies hadn't been defenseless. They'd been bait. "The beautiful thing about humans," Morgan continued, clearly enjoying our growing realization, "is that we never, ever fight fair. Why would we? Fair fights are for people who aren't creative enough to find better solutions." The tactical display now showed the true scope of human defenses in the system. Hidden weapons platforms built into asteroids, cloaked defense stations, mobile attack units that had been masquerading as civilian transports. We hadn't stumbled into a defenseless system. We'd walked into the most elaborate trap I'd ever seen. "So here's your choice, Commander Theiss. You can try to continue this engagement, in which case I'll stop playing around and start demonstrating what human weapons can do when we're not just trying to make a point. Or you can demonstrate that Vorthak commanders are capable of learning from their mistakes." The bridge fell silent, except for the increasingly frantic reports coming in from other ships in the fleet. Systems failures, communication breakdowns, weapons malfunctions, all carefully orchestrated to demonstrate just how helpless we really were. Commander Theiss looked around at her crew, at her displays, at the impossible situation we'd found ourselves in. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked genuinely uncertain. "How?" she asked finally. "How is this possible?" Captain Morgan's smile widened. "Because, Commander, you made the classic mistake of underestimating your opponent. You saw our numbers and assumed you understood our capabilities. You counted our ships and assumed you knew our strategies. You catalogued our colonies and assumed you comprehended our defenses." The main display shifted again, this time showing Earth itself. Not the primitive world our intelligence reports had suggested, but a gleaming jewel of technological advancement that made our homeworld look like a backwater mining colony. The truth is, humans have been preparing for this moment for decades. We've been studying every species we've encountered, analyzing every military doctrine, learning from every conflict. What you see here isn't the desperate last stand of a cornered species. It's the opening move in a much larger game. I realized with growing horror that everything we thought we knew about humans was wrong. Completely, utterly, catastrophically wrong. "The question now," Morgan said, his voice taking on a harder edge, "is whether you're smart enough to retreat with your dignity intact, or whether you need a more permanent lesson in human ingenuity." The silence stretched across our bridge like a death shroud. Commander Theiss stared at the tactical display showing our fleet's pathetic state, her claws digging furrows into her command chair's armrests. I could practically hear her pride shattering like glass. "You think you've won," she growled through clenched teeth. "But even disabled, we still have nuclear arsenals, antimatter warheads. We could reduce your precious colonies to radioactive dust." Captain Morgan's laugh was genuinely amused. "Oh, Commander, you still don't get it, do you?" The display shifted once more, and what I saw made my stomach drop through several dimensions. Every nuclear weapon in our fleet was showing as disarmed. Not just offline, but completely neutralized. The antimatter containment fields were stable, but locked. Even our emergency self-destruct sequences had been quietly disabled. "When I said I analyzed your technology," Morgan continued cheerfully, "I meant all of it, including your rather predictable tendency to threaten mass destruction when you start losing. Honestly, it's like you people read from the same playbook." Lieutenant Zarn was frantically checking his console. "Sir, he's right. All strategic weapons are showing green status, but zero response to activation commands." "Impossible!" Theiss roared. "Those systems are hardened." "Air-gapped. There's no way external signals could." "Could penetrate your security?" Morgan interrupted. "You're absolutely right, which is why I didn't use external signals." "Then how?" The human captain's expression turned almost professorial. "Tell me, Commander, what do you know about quantum entanglement?" I felt a chill run down my spine. Quantum entanglement was theoretical. Advanced physics that even our greatest scientists had barely begun to explore. "It's impossible to weaponize," I said weakly. "For you, perhaps. Humans have always had a knack for turning impossible theories into practical applications. Your weapons systems aren't just disabled. They're quantically locked. The particles controlling your firing mechanisms are now entangled with particles aboard my ship. As long as the Defiant exists, your weapons simply cannot function." The implications hit me like a meteor strike. If human technology had advanced to practical quantum manipulation, then everything we understood about warfare, about physics, about reality itself was obsolete. "Furthermore," Morgan continued, clearly enjoying our growing horror, "I should mention that this isn't exactly a solo mission." "What do you mean?" Theiss demanded. "Well, while you were all focused on me, my colleagues have been having similar conversations with your other fleets." The color drained from Theiss's face. "Other fleets? Did you really think we wouldn't notice 3 separate Vorthak armadas positioning themselves around human space? Admiral Sarah Kim is currently explaining quantum mechanics to your second fleet near Proxima Station. Captain Jake Torres is giving your third fleet a practical demonstration of human engineering at the Tau Ceti border. And Commander Lisa Wang is having what I'm told is a fascinating discussion about surrender terms with your Fourth Fleet commanders." My mandibles started clicking involuntarily, a nervous habit I'd never been able to shake. "You're saying that simultaneously, across multiple star systems? 4 separate human vessels are currently dismantling 4 separate Vorthak invasion forces," Morgan confirmed. "Oh, and before you ask, yes, we've also identified and neutralized your reserve fleets, your supply lines, and your fallback positions. I accessed our long-range communications array, desperate to contact Dominion Command. The array was functioning perfectly, but every channel was blocked by the same message repeating in our own language. All Vorthak military communications are temporarily suspended, pending resolution of current diplomatic negotiations. Have a pleasant cycle." "You've cut us off from our own command structure," I whispered. "Temporarily," Morgan assured us. "We're not monsters. Once this misunderstanding is resolved, you'll have full communications restored, along with your weapons, your navigation systems, and your dignity, assuming you make smart choices in the next few minutes. Commander Thiss was staring at her displays like they'd personally betrayed her. This is impossible. One species cannot develop technology this advanced without anyone noticing. Our intelligence networks span half the galaxy. Your intelligence networks, Morgan said gently, are impressive for monitoring conventional civilizations. But humans aren't particularly conventional. We've spent the last 50 years developing technology specifically designed to be undetectable by standard galactic surveillance methods. Why? I asked, genuinely curious, despite our dire circumstances. Why go to such lengths to hide your capabilities? Morgan's expression grew serious for the first time. Because we learned something important during our first contact with galactic civilization. Everyone out here thinks in terms of dominance and submission. Conquerors and conquered. We realized that if we appeared strong, we'd be seen as a threat to be eliminated. If we appeared weak, we'd be seen as prey to be devoured. So you appeared helpless, Thiss said slowly, understanding dawning in her voice. We appeared developing, growing, expanding at a reasonable pace with reasonable technology and reasonable defenses. Nothing that would trigger alarm from established powers. Nothing that would suggest we were anything more than another emerging species finding our place in the galactic community. I had to admit, it was brilliant. Horrifyingly brilliant. Meanwhile, Morgan continued, we were studying all of you. Learning your weaknesses, understanding your strategies, preparing for the inevitable day when someone would decide that humans looked like an easy target. And today is that day, I said quietly. Today is that day, he confirmed. The question now is what we do about it. Lieutenant Zarn raised a trembling appendage. Sir, incoming priority transmission from Dominion Command. Put it through, Thiss ordered. The face that appeared on our secondary screen belonged to Supreme Admiral Vex Vorthak, the highest-ranking military officer in the entire Dominion. He looked like he'd aged several cycles in the past few hours. Commander Thiss, report your status immediately. Sir, we've encountered unexpected resistance. The humans have demonstrated capabilities far beyond our intelligence estimates. I'm aware, the Supreme Admiral said grimly. All 4 invasion fleets are reporting similar situations. What I need to know is whether you can complete the mission. This looked around the bridge, at the disabled systems, at the helpless expressions on her crew's faces, at the impossible human ship hanging motionless in space while somehow holding our entire armada hostage. Sir, she said slowly, I don't believe mission completion is possible under current circumstances. Then you are hereby ordered to withdraw immediately and return to base for debriefing. All fleets are implementing Emergency Protocol 7. The transmission ended, leaving us in stunned silence. Emergency Protocol 7 was total retreat. The kind of withdrawal reserved for encounters with vastly superior civilizations. The kind the Dominion had never, in its entire history, been forced to implement. Captain Morgan had been listening to our conversation with polite interest. I take it that was your leadership authorizing a strategic withdrawal? It was, Thiss admitted grudgingly. Excellent. I'm pleased to report that your ship's navigation systems will be fully restored within the hour. Your weapons will remain offline until you've cleared human space, at which point full functionality will return automatically. And if we refuse to leave? Thiss asked, though her heart clearly wasn't in the threat. Morgan's smile returned, but this time it held no warmth whatsoever. Commander, I've spent the last hour demonstrating human restraint. Would you really like to see what happens when we stop being polite? As if to punctuate his point, several asteroids in the outer system suddenly exploded in perfectly timed sequence, each detonation spelling out letters in our own written language. Together, they formed a simple message: goodbye. The display of casual power was breathtaking. To achieve that level of precision across such distances, to coordinate simultaneous detonations with perfect timing, required technology that made our most advanced systems look like primitive tools. I believe, I said quietly to Commander Theiss, that retreat is the wisest option available to us. She nodded slowly, her pride finally accepting what her tactical sense had been screaming for the past hour. Signal the fleet. All ships prepare for immediate withdrawal from human space. Excellent choice, Morgan said approvingly. Oh, and, Commander? When you file your reports, you might want to mention that humanity is now officially claiming protectorate status over 17 systems in this sector. We'll be posting detailed boundary markers within the week. 17 systems? I gasped. But our intelligence reports show you only have colonies in 4. Your intelligence reports, Morgan said with that infuriating smile, have been carefully curated to show you exactly what we wanted you to see. The actual extent of human expansion is considerably more impressive. As our navigation systems came back online and the fleet began its humiliating retreat, I found myself oddly fascinated by the human captain. Morgan, may I ask you something? Of course. How long have you been planning this? His expression grew thoughtful. This specific engagement? About 18 months. The overall strategy? Since the day we made first contact with galactic civilization and realized that peaceful coexistence wasn't really on the table for most species. And you did all of this with just 4 ships? 4 ships that you saw, he corrected. The actual size of the human fleet is classified information that I suspect will remain classified for quite some time. As the Defiant prepared to escort us to the edge of human space, I couldn't help but marvel at the completeness of our defeat. We'd brought our most powerful weapons, our most advanced ships, our most experienced commanders, and we'd been outmaneuvered by a species we'd dismissed as primitives. One last question, I called out as our communication channel began to close. Yes? The chocolate cake. In the food replicators. Was that really necessary? Captain Morgan's laughter followed us all the way to the system boundary. Krex Valdrin, that was the most important part of the entire operation. You see, humans have learned that the best way to defeat an enemy isn't to destroy them. It's to make them question everything they thought they knew about themselves. And as we limped back toward Dominion space, our mighty fleet reduced to a collection of disabled vessels nursing wounded pride and chocolate-flavored humiliation, I realized that Captain Reese Morgan had succeeded beyond his wildest dreams. We'd come to conquer a primitive species, and instead discovered that we were the primitives all along. The Vorthak Dominion would never be the same. Neither would I. Because sometimes the most devastating weapon isn't a laser or a missile or an antimatter bomb. Sometimes it's simply the realization that everything you believed was wrong.